Welcome everybody. My name is Tim Sandy. I'm a VMware Systems Engineer. Today's session we're going to talk about VMworld 2014 and some of the announcements. This is going to be the first recap of 3. We're going to spread this out over the next following 2 months because there's so much information released and announced at VMworld we kind of had to break it up in order to fit into our typical 15 to 20 minute sessions. Again, this is just going to be very surface level, 100 level. These are the 100 level sessions that I normally do every month. So again, this is just going to be a quick overview of some of the announcements, very briefly, very high level, nothing too detailed. So starting off, one of the announcements was VRealize Sweet 5.8. So we have an updated version. Some of the benefits of the 5.8 version is improved business continuity and disaster recovery. And that has to do with some of the self-service policy-based provisioning in regards to DR. So again, just adding more capability to assist in those DR type scenarios, making it more automated with self-service and policy-based provisioning. We also increased some of the scalability of the VMs that we can protect and recover, as well as adding enhanced next generation applications that will be able to work with big data extensions such as Hadoop 2. We've also made sure that we have tightly integrated it with our NSX, which is our network virtualization product, just like we did with the compute stack when we created the Vsphere hypervisor to the compute stack. We abstracted that from the physical layer, and now we're doing that again with your networking layer, and that is our NSX product. We also have some new proactive support, the support assistant. You also get the free vCenter plugin, and you're able to identify some issues well before the problems ever occur. So because of the integrated analytics, they can foresee some problems coming down the road before they snowball into larger problems. So you can catch them before they get into be that really large problem. Another announcement was the new version of Site Recovery Manager, or SRM. Site Recovery Manager is our product that assists you in automating the process of failing over and failing back during DR situations. So that's disaster recovery. Some of the improvements with the new 5.8 is self-service disaster recovery using your vCloud Automation Center or VCAC integration. So now we're starting to integrate, as you can start to see and hear now as I talk about this stuff, we're starting to integrate our stuff more and more tightly with all of our products. So now we're getting Site Recovery Manager and VCAC integrated so that you can start doing a lot of self-service and automation using SRM. We've also increased the number of protected VMs per vCenter. As you see there, we had a 5x increase up to 5,000, as well as we can now do 2 times the amount of VMs for concurrent recoveries. So we're now up to 2,000 VMs. With most of our products, as we start releasing new products or updated versions of them, you've probably heard that we're getting away from the old C# client that you would install on a Windows desktop or Windows server. We are now predominantly using everything, and we're moving towards this to where all of our new products and updated products, you are now going to manage them through that Vsphere web client that you're already using. So we're bringing all of the management of other different products into that one central interface to make the job of that admin that much easier. So look for the rest of our products that are not managed through the web client to be that way here shortly in the next couple of quarters. Next up, we have the Vsphere Data Protection Advanced 5.8. This has given us the ability to now do parallel backups, and you can do up to 64 simultaneous backups at one time. So what this is doing for you is it's shortening the amount of time it takes to be able to back up more VMs. So you no longer need a large window of time to be able to get and make sure that all your backups are done on time. In larger environments, it's always a big issue for a lot of administrators trying to fit in and be able to back up the servers during those off-peak hours and be able to get them done in time. that's always been a problem. So with this, with the simultaneous backups, this will definitely help fix that. You're also able to access and restore backups anywhere. If, for example, you have 2 physical sites and you have 2 VDPA appliances on each site that are doing independent backups, if you lose one of those VDPA appliances, you can use your VDA appliance at the other site to connect to that storage at the other site and then do a restore from it. So it's giving a lot more flexibility now, where before you couldn't do that. You had to do a restore either with the existing one that was in place, or you had to reinstall a new one and connect to that data store locally at that site in order to do a recovery. So again, another good feature that's been added. And then we've also added support for Exchange DAGs, SQL clusters, as well as some Linux operating systems. So now, again, we can back up more and more of those mainstream applications and servers on your network. I think one of the big announcements, at least for people that do a lot of talking to customers in the commercial market space, your small to mid-sized businesses, a lot of times we'll use these Robo licenses. This is a remote office branch office licensing. It used to come in either Essentials or Essentials Plus. It was a per CPU license, just like regular Vsphere licensing. It came with vCenter Essentials, and then as you see here in the chart, it was missing a lot of the capabilities that the higher level vCenter editions have that many admins want to use, especially like fault tolerance or storage vMotion or distributed switching. Well, you would have to go to those higher level, much more expensive licenses before to get those capabilities. So VMware decided to repackage the Robo licenses, and on the right you see there is now either in a standard or advanced. Now let's go through some of the major changes between the old and the new type of Robo licensing. First one is, again, I said the old license was per CPU. The new licensing is now per VM. Okay, and you see right below that, there's a 20 VM pack. Robo licenses come in 25 VM packs. Those 25 VMs can be spread across several sites. So that is some flexibility that they've added in there, so a great improvement, giving that type of flexibility. So example, if you got 5 sites and 5 servers per site, you can use one 25 VM Robo pack for those 5 sites and those 25 VMs. Now, another change that you need to be aware of is that I said previously the old Robo came with vCenter Essentials. The new Robo packaging no longer comes with vCenter. It is now going to be purchased as a separate item. Some of the reasons, if you notice, again, we talked about some of the features that were not in the older version of the Robo licensing that are now in the new. So if you see here in the red yeses, we've added a lot of capabilities that a lot of administrators want, and some of the ones right above that, like vMotion high availability, data protection, replication, vShield endpoint, those come with even the standard edition of the Robo license. So as you can see, and then the advanced just gives you a couple more capabilities of the distributed switching and host profiles and auto deploy. And a lot of those are typically associated to your Enterprise Plus licensing, which is the more expensive of the vSphere licensing. So it's giving you a lot of the capabilities that you have of the more expensive licensing, but it's keeping your costs down if you have a small remote office branch office. So again, it's now per VM and 25 VM packs that can be split up between multiple sites. The one caveat, though, just to be aware of, is that you can only have one 25 pack per physical site with Robo licenses. So if you're looking at a site that has more than 25 VMs, then you really need to start looking at some other more standardized vSphere licensing in that. Just because as you start getting bigger, you're going to need that. So these are just meant for locations with 25 or less VMs. So those are the differences between that, and so you definitely want to get familiar with that because you need to know the differences, obviously. Another announcement that we had was a little bit different. Some people might have been a little shocked by this, but we came out with VRealize. VRealize, essentially, think of it like a software-defined data center in a box, just a very small condensed version of a software-defined data center. It is one of these VRealize boxes, has 4 2U servers in them. It also uses virtual SAN to give you that virtualized data store for it. It also comes with a custom GUI interface for the initial install and configuration for it. Now, just to give you an idea, you can connect up to 4 of these together, so that is your scalability, and it's a very linear type of scalability as far as how many servers you can have, and as you start adding additional VRealize systems, that scalability just is very linear and easy to figure out. Just to give you a rough idea, as you see here, for general server workloads, we're estimate about 100 of them per VRealize. And then if you're looking to use it for virtual desktops or VDI, it's approximately 250 VMs. Now, again, I mentioned to you that we have a GUI interface to set it up and configure it. One of the awesome things about the VRealize system is that once you've got it in the rack, powered up, and it's ready to start being configured, we've made an extremely simple GUI interface to where anybody could do the install on this. You just have to add an IP, a couple IPs, a name, some very basic information. And the greatest thing is that within 15 minutes from the time you start doing that, it will configure and build out your vCenter server. Your vCenter server will be up and running, and literally within 15 minutes, it'll be up and running, and you can start deploying brand new VMs from that system. And that is amazing. So, awesome product. Again, the primary use case for this, because it does use virtual SAN, definitely VDI is one of the big use cases for it. Your robo sites that we were talking about, as well as some virtual private cloud type of instantiations. Just one little note to mention that this is something that we are working with our OEM partners on. So the part number for this is going to be through the OEM. So say Dell or Supermicro. We have a couple of different providers, some OEM providers that are providing the hardware for these. So just keep that in mind. They are OEM. One big announcement that we made was the VRealize Family and naming. Now, don't worry, it's not new product. We have not created any new products when we're talking about VRealize. Essentially what we've done, much like we did with the vCloud Hybrid Service, you probably have heard, or if you haven't, we changed the name from vCloud Hybrid Service to vCloud Air. Well, what we've done here is the VRealize Family is taking all of our existing operations, management, and automation products and renaming them and then putting them together into some bundles. So as you see here on the left-hand side, on-prem software, we got the VRealize Cloud Management Platform, we got VRealize Operation, VRealize Automation, and VRealize Business. Essentially, VRealize Automation is your operations management or VCOps. VRealize Automation is your vCenter automation, vCloud Automation, VCAC, and then your VRealize Business is your ITBM. So as you see here, we're just renaming them. And then what you're going to start seeing here over the next quarter or two, we have our vCloud Air service. Well, we're now going to start offering a lot more as a service type offerings out on vCloud Air. So for example, we're going to, the same ones that we have on the on-prem side, we are now going to have them offering as a service out on our vCloud Air instances. So again, you're going to have a VRealize Cloud Management Platform Air, VRealize Operations Air, VRealize Automation Air, and VRealize Business Air. So you can see that we're really trying to build out our as-a-service offerings out on vCloud Air to match the products that we have for on-premise as well. One of the first packages that we've put together is the VRealize Operations Insight. Essentially, that is our vCenter Operations Management Suite Advanced, as well as vCenter Log Insight. So we're taking those two products, and again, we're giving it the name VRealize Operations Insight. The target customer for this is your current VSOM, your vSphere Operations Management customers, that are looking to kind of take the next step to get a better idea into the daily operations and management of their environment and really start excuse me, start getting more knowledgeable about their virtualized network. So you're really going to want to talk to your customers that are currently have VSOM in their network. This would be the next step for them. So these are definitely going to be your primary candidates to talk to about the VRealize Operations Insight. And these are licensed per CPU, and it is available this quarter. Next, we have the VRealize Suite. VRealize Suite is taking all of our operations automation type products, putting it together in one large suite. As you see here, it comes with ITBM Standard, VCAC Advanced or Enterprise, vCenter Operations Management, Advanced or Enterprise, and Log Insight. So it's taking all of those tools, putting them together in one big suite. Now, typically the customers are going to be interested in the VRealize Suite because it's all of our operations automation and management products put together. They're going to be really large customers, and those customers typically work and purchase in the world of ELAs for a lot of their software. So the VRealize Suite is for ELA customers only. It's the only way you can get this. But if you think about the people that are probably going to be interested in it, they're the ones that are typically doing ELAs anyway. This slide here is, I'm not going to go into detail in it, but when we're talking about some of the old suites as well as these new VRealize suites and offerings, you see here we've got the on-premise, you got off-premise, whether it be off-premise, whether it be our vCloud Air or whether it may be Amazon or Azure, depending on what you have, and whether or not you have them individually or whether you're using them both together in a hybrid type of form. Depending on what the customer has and what they're looking for, this just kind of shows you which particular suite right now of products would be best used for them. So this is just kind of a nice little reference slide for you here. Not going to spend too much time on that. Last part of this presentation, we're going to talk about some of the beta announcements at VMworld. The first one is going back to what we were just talking about with the VRealize family of products. We have the VRealize Automation Air. So this is the first as a service out in vCloud Air type of offering that is kicking them off. So this is again in beta. So this is just like having vCloud Automation Center, VCAC, as a service out on our vCloud Air. So this is something that you will see probably in maybe first quarter of next year that it will go GA. And then you're going to start seeing further, again, as a service type of offerings come up little by little over the next couple of quarters. So this is one of the first announcements for the betas. The next one is VVaults. We're not going to get too much into VVaults or what they are. Essentially, when you connect your ESX hosts to your storage, you work with your storage administrators typically, and you're going to make all of these connections and redundant connections to these things called LUNs. These are going to be your data stores where all your VMs and associated files are going to store. The way we currently do that nowadays, again, we've got all these redundant connections to make sure that if we lose a connection, we are still up and running. And it kind of looks like a spider web of connections to the storage. VVaults is going to simplify that for us. It's going to reduce the number of connections between the hosts and between the storage, making the job much easier for your virtual admins as well as your storage admins. So that's basically, it's going to make the life much easier for the storage and virtualized admins making those connections. And it's just a better way to present the data, as well as with this we can also wrap storage-based policies. So again, you can make sure that with any type of policy that you use with any kind of software, it makes the life of the admin easier, and you're also ensuring that it is meeting any compliance or security type requirements that you may have. And finally, Vsphere 6. Many of us have been waiting for the new version of the hypervisor to come out. Vsphere 6 beta is out now. It will go GA probably sometime either first or second quarter, I would imagine. No, nothing for sure at this point. But some of the announced improvements that they're talking about right now. Currently, if you ever wanted to use fault tolerance for any of your VMs, you were limited to only VMs that had one virtual CPU only. If they had more than one virtual CPU, you could not use fault tolerance with them. So that would rule out your vCenter server right there, because vCenter always by default comes with 4 virtual CPUs. So with vSphere 6, we are now looking at having the capability of doing up to 4 virtual CPUs. So now we're going to be able to start being able to protect and use fault tolerance for a lot of these larger applications, whether it be vCenter or maybe an Exchange server, SQL server, whatever. A lot of these bigger type, heavier load application type servers we can now protect using fault tolerance. They're also making some improvements on application mobility. Another big popular one besides the fault tolerance, though, is the cross vCenter vMotion. What that is, we've currently had the limitation to where if you had 2 physical sites that each had a virtual center server, you couldn't vMotion a VM from one vCenter to the other. Just couldn't do it. It wouldn't let you, as well as if there was any long distance geographical physical distance between them, you couldn't do VMs that way either because they would fail. They just couldn't handle the distance and the latency problems. With vSphere 6, we're now going to be able to do cross vCenter vMotion as well as long distance vMotion, and these are huge. So between the fault tolerance improvement and the cross and long distance vMotion capabilities, just those alone are some huge improvements that have been long in waiting for. And finally, they're going to have some cloud native application integration. Again, as we've mentioned throughout this presentation and as we will the continuing ones, more and more we're integrating our products together to where they work very tightly integrated together so that you can use the benefits of multiple products together. So that concludes this portion of the VMworld 2014 announcements. Again, this is the first one of a series of 3. So next month we will cover the second one and cover some additional stuff that was announced at VMworld. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to watch this first of the 3 sessions on the VMworld recap, which is going over all the announcements at VMworld this year. Again, keep in mind that the next 2 sessions will be over the next 2 months, so please feel free to come back and check out the additional 2 other sessions, so then that way you get all the information that was announced at VMworld this year. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.